Hello friends! Today we are gonna design this beautiful social media application using React, HTML and CSS. This is our homepage. There is a sticky navbar, left and right menus. These posts. I can open comments or hide. User stories. And the best thing is we are gonna implement this dark mode functionality. Even if you refresh the page, it will be remembered because we are gonna store this information in the local storage. And there is a profile page where we can see the user information and their posts. Also, we will design this login page and register page. And in the next video, we will be able to log in and register using a backend server. And we will fetch all this data from our API. We will add new posts, we will be able to like them or leave a comment. If you don't want to miss the next tutorial, you can subscribe now because I will create it as soon as possible. By the way, this project will be responsive, so you will learn how to create responsive components using React and Sass. I believe it's a great project to improve your design skills. If you want to see more designs like this, please like the video. If you are ready, let's get started. Okay, if you created a new folder, let's create our React application. To do that, we are going to be using our GitHub repository. That because I want to get rid of unnecessary files, it's going to be a quick start. To do that, we are going to be using this branch. It includes everything we need to start. So I'm going to come here and copy this URL. And I'm going to say git clone. We are going to be using only one branch, so I'm going to say single branch. And branch name here. I'm going to paste my URL and finally dot and enter. As you can see, our files are here, but we don't have our libraries. To install them, you can use npm install, or if you are using yarn like me, just say yarn. So it's going to install our libraries. I can close here. And as you can see, this is going to be our first page. We are going to have this login page. We are going to have this register page. And if I go to home page, as you can see, this is the home page. And we are going to go to profile page. And this is a user ID. Okay, let's start with the login page. As you can see, we are going to have a background color. We are going to have a card here. And this card includes two parts, left and right side. Basically, we are going to be using Flexbox and separate this div into two pieces. Let's come here and create new folder. It's going to be pages. And our first page will be login page. Second page will be register. Let's create others, home and user profile. And inside those folders, I'm going to create my JavaScript files, login.jsx. I'm going to create my function quickly. As you can see, this is a component. And also I'm going to create here a style file. To do that, we are going to be using Sass. That's because it's really easy to handle class names. We don't have to write every class name. We are going to be using only HTML elements. When we use this, you are going to understand better. Just don't worry. I'm going to come here and I will say yarn add and Sass. After that, we will be able to create any Sass file. I'm going to say login.scss. Okay, let's import this CSS file here. I'm going to delete here. We don't need this React. And I'm going to say login.scss. And here, I'm going to give a class name and it's going to be login. For each component and for each page, we are going to be using this logic. CSS file, import CSS, and class name. So I'm going to do the same thing for others quickly. Okay, they are ready. To see our login page, I'm going to use this component inside my app.js. I can delete this and paste here login component. Of course, I should import. As you can see, it comes from pages, login and login component. Okay, we are ready. Let's start our application. I will say yarn start. It's asking me another port. I'm gonna say yes. That's because we are using this port for other application. Okay, as you can see, this is our first page. Let's create this card and give some style. I'm gonna close everything here and only open up login. And I can shrink here. Okay, firstly, inside we are gonna have a card. And we are gonna have two divs, left and right side. And inside this left side, we are gonna have this h1 tag, this p tag, and there's a span here. And finally, a button, and it says register. As you can see, I'm not using any class name. That's because we are using a Sass file, and right now it's really easy to handle those HTML elements. We are just gonna use their parents, so even if I used here another h1 tag, there will be no conflict. You are gonna see in a minute. And for this side, again, h1 tag, it says login, and we are gonna have a form here. And inside this form, we have two inputs, username and password, and finally a button. I'm gonna say input. It's gonna be text, placeholder, username. It was username or email. Okay, username. And one more is gonna be password, and type will be password. So when we write here anything, it's gonna be just dots. And this button, and it's gonna say just login. And that's all. Let's open up our CSS file. I'm gonna say login.css, sorry, SCSS. So I'm gonna open on the right side so we can see better. And right now I can take this class name and write it here. And for the card div, I'm not gonna write it here. I'm gonna write it inside login. That's because it's our parent. So I'm gonna say card. Inside this card we have left and right. Inside this left component we are gonna have a h1 tag, p tag, and span. And there's a button here. And inside right side, h1 tag, form element, and inside this form we have inputs, and finally a button. We don't have to give specific class names for those elements, we are just writing directly inside parents. It's that easy. Okay, so let's see what we are gonna have. For the main container, as you can see, we are gonna use this background color, and as you can see, its height is 100%. So basically, I'm gonna come here and say height 100 VH. So it's gonna contain all screen, and background color will be this purple color. Like that. So how I'm gonna center everything? I'm gonna be using Flexbox. I will say display flex, align item center, and justify content center. So it's gonna center our elements horizontally and vertically. Okay, so far so good. And for this card, let's come inside. I'm gonna say display flex again. And as you can see, right now our elements are horizontal, but in our example, this part and this part have exactly the same width. So you can come here and say width 50%, and for the right side width 50%. But if you are using Flexbox, I recommend you to use just flex. And it's gonna be 1, and here it's gonna be 1. So they are gonna be equal. Let's check. Of course, we cannot see right now. Let's give here a background color. It's gonna be white. As you can see, left side and right side have exactly the same width. Perfect. But this card is too big. I want to give here a width. is going to be 50%, half of the screen, like that. And I want to give some border radius inside. It's going to be 10 pixels, perfect. And for this left side, as you can see, we have an image here. We are going to have a background image. And after that, I'm going to give some padding. Let's give some space here. Okay, I'm going to say background. Let me shrink this a little bit. Okay, I'm going to say URL. We are going to use an external URL. I will paste. As you can see, we are going to be using pexels.com. It has tons of free images. So we are going to use one of them. I'm going to come here. I didn't save. As you can see, it's here, but we cannot see. Let's give a height for this card. I'm going to say height. Actually, let's say minimum height. And it's going to be 600 pixels. As you realize, we cannot see our image. I'm going to come here and background size will be cover. So it's going to cover all these components, this div. And I can center this image. I'm going to come here and I'm going to say center. Okay, it's better. But let's check here. As you can see, there is a linear gradient here, this purple effect. How we are going to apply this? Let me show you. I'm going to say linear gradient, and don't forget here a comma. And I'm going to say red to black, for example. And as you can see, it gives this effect. It starts with red color and it's going to black. So instead of this red and black, I'm going to be using this color. As you can see, it's a purple color, but there is an opacity here, so we can see our image here. Perfect. As you can see, it's exactly the same. Let's take care of our elements, but before, I'm going to give here a padding. It's going to be 50 pixels. Okay. And as you can see, our button is here, but I want to see all these elements vertically. To do that, I'm going to use again display flex. If I do that, they are going to be horizontal. But if I say flex direction column, they are going to be vertical. So I can give some space between them. To do that, I'm going to use gap and let's say 30 pixels. Let's change font color here. It's going to be white. Perfect. And right now I want to increase this font size. H1 tag, it's going to be 100 pixels. As you can see, it's really big, but I don't like this space here. I'll say line height is going to be a little bit smaller, like that. Perfect. And what about this P tag? Actually, it looks really nice. Maybe I can decrease this font size for this span. It's going to be 14 pixels. Like this. And for this button, let's see. As you can see, its width is half of this div and its background color is white. There is no border and this text is purple. So let's come here with 50%. I'm going to give some padding inside. I will delete borders and background color is white and text color is purple. So I'm going to use this color. Like that. I can give cursor pointer and increase this font weight. Font weight will be bold and cursor pointer. Like that. Let's check. Okay, it's not same that because we gave here a padding, but if I give padding for this right side also, they are gonna be equal. Let's do that. I'm gonna come here. Remember, it was 50%. Sorry, pixels. And as you can see, they are equal. So I'm gonna do exactly the same thing here. It's gonna be display flex, flex direction column, and I'm gonna give some gap and let's say 50. So there is a space between this H1 tag and this form. And what about this H1 tag? I'm just gonna change this color. It's gonna be a little bit softer, like that. And for this form, as you can see, it's horizontal. Let's make this vertical. Display flags, flags direction column. And I'm gonna give gap between them for each element. As you can see, there's a padding and there is only border button. So I'm gonna say border none. But we are gonna have border bottom. It's gonna be 1 pixel, solid and light gray. And padding is gonna be 20 from top and bottom and 10 from left and right. Like this. And what about this button? I'm gonna do exactly the same thing here. 50%, padding will be 10. I'm gonna delete border, none, but this time background color will be purple. It's gonna be a little bit lighter purple like that, and font color will be white. I'm gonna paste this color, font color, and font weight will be bold. Of course, cursor pointer, so we will be able to click. Okay, but as you can see, it's not centered. Only thing I should do is to go to parent. Remember, we are using display flags. I'm gonna say justify content and center. Like that. It's that easy. Let's check. Okay, perfect. But as you can see, this image is overflowing. There was a border radius here. To prevent this, I'm gonna go to card component and I will say overflow hidden. In this case, we are gonna see this border and awesome. So let's do the same thing for register page. Let's check here. As you can see, it's exactly the same. Only difference is there are more inputs here, email and name. Our background image is different and also form is on the left side and this background on the right side. Actually, I'm just gonna copy this login component and let's open register here and I'm gonna paste. Of course, it's gonna be register component, class name will be register. I'm gonna change this button. It's gonna be login, but we are gonna ask, do you have an account? And here, and finally, we are gonna export. Let's add some more items here. It's gonna be email, and it's gonna be text, and we are gonna ask for name. Let's call this component here inside app.js. I'm gonna import, and it's here. Let's give same style. I'm gonna copy here and paste. I'm gonna say register. Of course, if you want to, you can create a common folder and you can give only one CSS file. But anyway, it's just 80 lines. Okay, as you can see, our inputs are here and we changed those buttons. Let's check here. As you can see, this text is different. I'm gonna change here. And this background is different. I'm gonna come here and change this image. And I'm gonna change this left side and right side. It's really easy to do that because we are using display flags here. Only thing I should do is writing here flags direction. It's gonna be row again, but this time it's gonna be reverse. Like that. Awesome. As you can see, they are same. So what about those buttons? Let's check here. If I click here, it's going to login page, and if I click here, it's going to register page. To do that, we are going to be using React Router DOM. So we will be able to navigate between pages. It's really easy to use that. Let's open up tutorial. We are going to install React Router DOM. Let's open up our terminal. And here I'm going to say yarn add React Router DOM. And after that, as you can see, we are gonna need those functions and components. Let's come here and paste. And as you can see, we are gonna create this browser router. Basically, we can give here any path. And when we visit this path, we can show any HTML element here, or we can go to any specific page. In this case, it's gonna be /login, and element will be our login page. /register is gonna be register page. It's gonna work like that. Let's copy this and paste here. I'm gonna close here and this sidebar. Okay, I'm gonna say login, and when we visit this path, just go to login page. So I'm gonna do the same thing for other register, and it's gonna be register page. So how we are gonna use this router? As you can see, we are gonna call this router provider, and inside we are gonna pass our router. So instead of this register page, I'm gonna paste here, and let's see. As you can see, there's an error that because we don't have any main page, we didn't create any home page. But if I go to register page, as you can see, it opens this page. If I go to login page, like that. But how we are gonna add our links here? Again, we are gonna use React Router DOM. Let's come here, and for this button, I'm gonna say link. As you can see, it comes from React Router DOM, and I'm gonna wrap this button. I will say to, and we are going to register page. So I will do the same thing for here. This time we are going to go to login page, and I'm going to import this link. I'm clicking. Sorry, this one. Perfect, it works. So what about home page? As you can see, we have a navbar, left bar, and here we are going to have these timeline posts and those stories, and here finally right bar. But there is something important here. If I go to user page, this profile page, as you can see, we have exactly the same components, navbar, left bar, and right bar. Only difference is this profile and this home section. Of course, for this application, it's not a big deal that because we have 2 pages, but in the future, we can add more pages, and writing those 3 components for each page is not a good idea. We shouldn't repeat ourselves. To do that, we are going to be using React Router DOM outlet. Okay, it's here. As you can see, we can create any component here, any specific component, and we can write our common elements here. In our case, it's going to be navbar, left bar, and right bar, and this outlet will be our variable component, this home page or this profile page. Let's do that, and you are going to understand better. I'm going to come here inside app.js, and I'm going to create here a function. Let's say const layout, and it's going to return our component. Firstly, we are going to have our main div, and inside we are going to have navbar. Of course, we don't have our components yet. Let's come here and create quickly. I'm going to say components, navbar component, left bar, and right bar. Right now, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to create my functions as CSS files, and I'm going to give class names. Okay, they are ready. As you can see, right bar, navbar, and left bar. So we can use them right now. I'm going to say navbar, and I'm going to create one more div here. That because in our application, as you can see, this one this one and this one is horizontal. Basically, we are going to create here a div, which is display flex. Of course, you can give here any class name, but also you can give inner style here. We can use it here that because it's going to be only display flex. Okay. And inside left bar, here is right bar, and in the middle we are going to have React Router DOM outlet like that. So this is going to be our layout, so we can use it everywhere, for home page, for profile page, anywhere you want. But how we are going to use this layout, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to come here and create another path. And path will be, let's say, main URL, and element will be our layout. But how we are going to decide which outlet we are using, it's really easy. One more property here, and it's going to be children. And we are going to write our children paths. First one will be our home page, and element will be home page. And one more, of course, comma between them. And path will be profile, but if you remember, we are using user ID here. So I'm going to come here and say colon and ID. And this ID will be anything, any number, any string, doesn't matter. And it's going to call profile page. Why they are not coming? Okay, they are here, but okay, we can import. I will say import home page from pages, home and home. I will do the same thing for profile page. Okay. Let's see right now. I'm gonna go to home page. As you can see, navbar, left bar, home, and right bar. If I go to profile page and any number here or any string, and navbar, left bar, profile, and right bar. Perfect. Our layout is working. But there is something important here. If we are not logged in, we shouldn't see this page. That's because, as you can see, we are going to have some stories and our friends' posts. So if you are not logged in, you are not allowed to see this page. So it's going to redirect us immediately to login page. But how we are going to do this? Let's create here a fake functionality. I'm just going to say const current user is going to be false. It means we are not logged in yet. Of course, in the next tutorial, we are going to fetch this user from our backend server. But for the design part, it can stay like that. I'm just going to show you how you can protect your routes. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to say const protected route. And we can take any child component here. I will say children. You can pass here any page or any layout. You are going to understand better right now. Don't worry. And I'm going to write here a condition. I will say if there is no current user, it means we are not logged in. So return, we are going to be using React Router DOM navigate, and we are going to be navigated to login page. So if we are logged in, if there is a current user, return just children. I think you understood the logic here. These children will be our protected layout, our home page and profile page. So instead of this layout, I'm gonna wrap this with protected route. Let's copy this and wrap our layout. So basically everything you write inside this protected route will be checked by this function. This children is this layout. So if there is no current user, we are not gonna see this layout. We are going to be redirected to login page. If there is a user, we will be able to see our layout, which is home page and profile page. Let's save and see. As you can see, we are in the login page I'm gonna delete and try to go to home page. As you can see, I'm not able to see. Perfect. If I make this true, right now if I try to go to home page, I can. It's that easy. I hope you understood how it works. I can close this right now and let's start with this navbar. We are gonna have two parts again, this left part and right part. Left part includes this logo, those icons and this search div. Inside this div we have icon and this input. And for the right side we have icons and this user section, which includes our user profile picture and username. And for those icons we are gonna be using MUI icons. As you can see, there are tons of icons. We can choose any style here. We can search for icons. So let's import those libraries. I'm gonna open my terminal, yarn add and those libraries. And after that, let's see which one we are gonna use. This homepage, this moon, this application, let's search for them. I'll say home, it's gonna be outlined and we can use this one. I'm gonna copy this and paste here. Let's search for moon. Okay, this one. Basically, we are adding our icons like that. Which one I'm using? Probably this one. I'm just copying and pasting here. I'm not gonna search for each icon. You already see here. I'm just gonna directly copy and paste here. And we are gonna use them here. But before, let's separate our navbar. It's gonna be left and right side. Let's close this sidebar and terminal. And inside this, I'm gonna say span, and it's gonna be our logo. Let's say Llama Social. Of course, when we click this logo, we are gonna go to home page. So I'm gonna add here React Router DOM link. And to home page. Okay, as you can see, there's a text decoration here. I don't want to see that. I can give inner style here. I will say text decoration. It's gonna be no. Okay, and what else? We are gonna have those icons and finally search div. Dark mode icon, but before that we are gonna have home page, this home icon, and finally this grid icon. Oops, not inside link. Like that. Okay, they are here. Let's create our search input here. I'm gonna say search, and it's gonna include this search icon, and finally an input. And I'm gonna give placeholder, it's gonna say search. Like that. Okay, perfect. And for the right side, let's add those icons and this user section. Inside right, I will just paste my icons, person, email, and notification icon. And finally, user div here, which includes our image, user profile picture, and a span. Let's say John Doe. And for this image, I can add any image. Let's open up login CSS and take this URL. It really doesn't matter. Okay. As you can see, it's really huge. We are gonna take care of this right now. But before, I want to comment this out that because it's really big. Firstly, we are gonna handle this flexbox. They are gonna be horizontal. And after that, I can open. Let's open up our navbar and take this here. Okay, let's see. This is our main container. Inside we have left, right, Let's separate them. And inside this left, we are going to have our logo and search component, search div, and inside this div, we have our input. And here, inside right, we are going to have user div, and inside this user div, we are going to have our user image and span, which is username. Let's make here display flags. As you can see, left side and right side are horizontal, but left side is not horizontal. This search bar is here. Let's do the same thing here, display flags. And I can do the same thing for this search bar. That's because, as you can see, it's not centered. Let's say display flags, align item center. Perfect. It's centered, but this time our items are not centered. So I will do the same thing here, align item center, align item center. So all items will be horizontally centered. Perfect. What about this right side? I will do the same thing. If you are using Flexbox, it's really easy to handle everything. So how I'm gonna separate them? In our example, as you can see, left side is here, right side is here. To separate them, I'm going to be using justify content. Justify content and space between. Perfect. Let's give some padding here. I will say padding 10 and 20 from left and right. Like that. And I can give any specific height here. Let's say 50 pixels. I'm doing this because we are gonna need a calculation here. As you can see, our left and right bar is sticky. Also this navbar, when I scroll, they are staying in a certain place. So we are gonna need this calculation to set this left bar and right bar position. Okay. As you can see, there are no space between them. I'm gonna come here and gap will be 30 pixels. By the way, I can give here any border. I will say border button, 1 pixel, solid and light gray. Okay, like that. We can see better right now. And what about this logo? I will say font weight bold. It's gonna be a little bit bigger. And I will say color, let's say dark blue. We are gonna change this color later when we handle this dark mode, but it can stay like that for now. And for this search div, again, gap, and I'm gonna give border here, pixel, solid, and again, light gray. And I wanna give border radius here. It's gonna be 5 pixels, and I'm gonna give some padding inside. Like that. Of course, I'm gonna delete this input border. Let's come here and say border none. And I'm gonna increase its width because, as you can see, it's really small. And in our application, around 500 pixels. Let's say 500. And perfect. And for the right side, there should be a gap here. Let's say 20 pixels. And what about this image? I can open this and I can decrease its size. It's gonna be 30 pixels. I wanna make this a circle, so it's gonna be 50%. And to cover our div, object fit will be cover. Like that. They are not centered. As always, I'm gonna be using Flexbox and align item center. And that's all. I can give gap here. And font weight will be a little bit bolder. Not bold, but 500. Like this. Okay, awesome. Let's check. Okay, so what about this left side? We are gonna have 3 sections here. First one, second one, and third one. But before those sections, I want to create here a container. That's because I'm gonna give a padding. If you remember in the login page, when we give any padding here, there was a conflict, it was getting bigger. To prevent this problem, the better idea is using a container. So let's close everything and open up left bar, and I'm going to create here a container. And inside this container, I can create my sections, let's say menu. And for the first menu, as you can see, we have a user, again, our image and username. Let's say user. Actually, I'm going to use exactly the same thing here. I can copy and paste. Like that. And after this user, we can start our items. And as you can see, each item includes an icon here and a span. Let's say item. We are going to have here an image. We are not using material icon that because they are colorful. So it's going to be image and a span. Let's say friends. So I will do the same thing for others, but before, let's upload our images. I'm going to open sidebar, and inside source folder, I'm going to create another folder. And inside this folder, I'm going to drag and drop my images. As you can see, our icons are here. We are going to use them. Let's copy them here quickly. I don't want to waste your time. As you can see, first element is friends. So I'm going to come here and paste. Of course, it's too big. Let's comment this out again. And perfect, it's here. So I'm going to do exactly the same for other items, groups, marketplace, watch, and memories. I can directly copy and paste. There is nothing different here. As you can see, our items are here. Like that. Okay, before writing others, let's take care of this style. I'm going to open left bar. I'm going to take this here and our main container. And after that, container. And inside this container, we have menu, user, and item. And inside this item, we have image and a span. And inside this user, exactly the same thing. Like that. Okay. So let's give a padding here, 20 pixels. As you can see, we have a padding here. Right now, I can take care of this user. I'm gonna open my image here. I will say display flags, align item center, and image will be 30. It's gonna be a circle, and object fit cover. By the way, I can give a gap here, 10 pixels, like that. What about those items? Display flags, align item center, and gap between them will be 10 pixels. And for those images, for the consistency, I'm gonna give exactly the same numbers. Actually, let's say only width, like that. But as you can see, there are no space between them. To do that, we can give display flags for this menu item, and we can make it horizontal. Sorry, vertical. I will say display flags, flags direction column, and gap will be 20 pixels. Like that. And let's check our example here. There's a HR tag here that we can separate our menus. And for other menus, we have a text here. And for this one, let's create others. After this first menu, as you can see, it ends here. I'm gonna create HR tag. And after that, we can create other menus. And I can give this text span here, your shortcuts. I'm gonna say span, your shortcuts. And after that, it's exactly the same thing. Our items, which includes image and span. So I'm gonna copy and paste this like that. Let's check. As you can see, they are here. So I'm gonna do exactly the same thing for this last one. Where is our menu here? HR tag, menu, a span tag which says others and other items. Okay, let's give some style. Firstly, I'm gonna give style for this HR tag. So before this menu, I can create here. I will say HR. Firstly, I'm gonna give some margin, top and bottom, and it's not gonna be any margin from left and right. And I want to delete this border, that because I'm gonna give a height here, a specific height. It's gonna be really thin, let's say pixels. And if I give any background color, let's say light gray, we will be able to see this height. Like that. As you can see, it's really thin, but it looks nice. And our margin here. And what about this span? Inside our menu, before this user, I can write. It's gonna be just smaller. But as you can see, our items are smaller right now. That's because we didn't specify any font size here. Let's say 14 pixels. And it's gonna be bigger than this span. And maybe this one here. Remember, inside user, font size 14. Okay. And remember our login page. This was a flexbox, and to give a specific width, we used flex1 and flex1, and right now they are equal. So we can do the same thing here, but this time, let's check our example. As you can see, this left bar is small. This right bar is a little bit bigger, not that much, but bigger. And this outlet is the biggest one. So we can give any specific number for them. Let's see. For left one, I'm gonna say flex2. Let's open up right one. I will say right bar. This is our container, remember. I'm gonna say flex3. It's gonna be bigger. And let's open up our app.js. Our items. Basically, I can give here another div. And I can give inner style. So it's gonna be flex, let's say 6. So it's gonna be the biggest one. Like that. It works as we expected. Of course, you can change those numbers. You can give whatever you want. You can make here smaller, here bigger, as you wish. It's your imagination. But one more thing we should consider, and it's position of those items. As I said, when we scroll, they are gonna stay where they are. So basically their position will be sticky. So let's open up. Actually, let's close everything here and open up navbar. So I'm gonna say position sticky, and I should give here any position, and it's gonna be top 0. So even if I scroll, it's gonna stay on the top 0. Of course, I cannot show it right now because we don't have any content inside this home. Let's write actually. I'm just gonna come here and say h1 home, and I'm gonna duplicate this like that. And I'm gonna scroll, and as you can see, it's here. And of course, it looks transparent. I'll say background color is gonna be white. As you can see, perfect. So I will do the same thing for this left and right bar. Let's open up left bar. I'm gonna say position sticky. But we have to calculate our top point here. That because, remember, of course, we didn't write anything. Let me show you here. Remember, this height is 50 pixels, but also we gave padding for top and bottom, 10 pixels here, 10 pixels here. So in total, it's 70 pixels. So I'm gonna write here 70 pixels. But if I do that, it's not gonna work. As you can see, I can still scroll. That's because we didn't specify any certain height. So basically, it should contain this area. It's not gonna be 100 VH. That's because we should consider this area. Remember, it's 70 pixels. So if I come here and say height, we are going to be using calculate method, 100 VH minus 70 pixels. And right now, if I scroll, as you can see, it stays there. Perfect. And if I want to add more items here, I'm going to open left bar and I'm going to duplicate this last item. Like that. As you can see, we cannot see them. That's because we have a height here and it's overflowing. We cannot see them. So what I'm going to do is to come here and say overflow. If it's overflowing, just scroll. If I scroll here, as you can see, it's not moving. But if I scroll here, perfect. We can see our other items. But this scroll bar looks a little bit ugly. I don't want to see that. To prevent this scroll bar, we are going to be using WebKit. I will say WebKit scroll bar, and it's going to be display none. Let's see again. Perfect. I can scroll, but there is no bar. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing for this right bar. Let's copy here and open up right bar and paste here. Okay, let's see what we have. Again, I'm gonna give a container, and after that I can create each item here. I'm gonna close everything and open up right bar. Inside, let's create our container and our first item. Let's see. As you can see, there's a text here. Let's say span this text. And after that, there are two items, which includes user information here and two buttons. Let's create. I will say user. First part will be user info, which includes user image. Let's copy paste here any image. And username, Jane Doe. And after this info, we are going to have one more div, and it's going to include our buttons. Let's say buttons div. First button is going to be follow, and second one will be dismiss. As you can see, they are horizontal, and for each div here are horizontal also. Let's make those images smaller first. I'm going to open my CSS file. First here, I'm going to create my container. Remember, we have padding, and after that I can create my items. If you remember, we have a span, suggestions for you. I'm going to change its color. It's going to be gray, and after that we can create our user. And inside this user, we have user info, which includes our image and username and buttons. Of course, class name, like that. Okay, let's give here quickly display flags, align item center. Those items are on the left and those items are on the right. So basically, I'm gonna say justify content space between. So I can separate them. So I'm gonna do the same thing for this part and for this part. They are gonna be horizontal and centered. And let's take care of this image first. 40 pixels, border radius is going to be circle, and as always, object width cover. Let's see. Okay, perfect. And we are going to have one more user here. Let's copy this and write one more. And as you can see, they are too close each other. So I want to give a margin here, 20 pixels, but from left and right is going to be 0. And I can give gap here. And for those buttons, it can be smaller, 10 pixels, like that. After image, I'm going to say span, username. Font weight will be 500, a little bit thicker. And let's take care of these buttons. For each button, I'm gonna delete border, padding will be 5 pixels, text color will be white, and finally cursor pointer. Oops. Of course it's not a class name, it's an HTML element, like that. Of course we are gonna change their colors. As you can see, first one is this blue color and second one is this red color. Of course you can give different class names for them, but there is a better idea. We are gonna be using first child and last child. For the first child, our background color will be this blue color, and for the last child, background color will be this red color. Let's see. Perfect. I can change this font color. It's gonna be just black. Okay, let's see what else we have. As you realize, we have a background color here, and our item has a box shadow. It's not a border, it's a shadow. Let's add this. I'm gonna find my item here, and I'm gonna add my box shadow. If you don't know how to create a box shadow, don't worry, you don't have to memorize anything here. Just Google for box shadow generator and find any website, it really doesn't matter. And here you can just arrange whatever you want. You can give length, you can increase radius, and you can spread. Just use any website and create your own shadow. So don't worry about those numbers. Let's see right now, by the way. As you can see, perfect. But there is no padding inside and it looks a little bit strange. Let's say 20 pixels. And what about other items? Let's check. As you can see, another span, and there is something similar here. As you can see, we are using same image, same username. Additionally, we have a text here, and instead of those buttons, we have a date. So I'm not gonna create things from scratch. I can use exactly the same thing. Let's come here, and where is our item? Here, it ends here. I'm gonna create another one, and our title, what was that? Latest activities. And after that, let's copy this user like that. And instead of this username, I'm gonna create here a p tag, and I'm gonna wrap this. And after this username, we can write any text like that. Okay. And instead of those buttons, I'm just gonna create another span, and it's gonna be our date, 1 minute ago. Of course, there will be a space here like that. And let's create other activities. I'm gonna copy this like that. Let's give our styles. If you remember, it's a p tag. I'm gonna open this. Inside user, there is a span, but before this span, I'm gonna create my p tag, and its color will be, let's say, gray. As I said, we are going to change those colors after dark mode, but for now it can stay like that. But as you realize, there is no space here. I can give some margin for each item. I will say margin bottom 20 pixels. It's that easy. And one more thing, we are going to have our online friends. As you can see, it's exactly the same thing. We are going to have user, and we don't have any item here, but additionally we are going to add these dots, green dots. I'm gonna copy this. Where is our item? Okay, it ends here. Another item, our title here. And after that, I'm gonna copy my user here. We don't need this. We don't need p tag. Like that, but we are going to add here another div. Let's say online. We are not going to create anything inside. We are just going to give background color. Let's come here. After this user and its image, I'm going to say online. and I'm gonna create a dot. Let's say 12 pixels. It's gonna be a circle, and background color will be lime green. Of course, we should give a certain point here. As you can see, it's here, but I want to put this on this image on top and right. To do that, we are going to be using position absolute. So we can give any specific position. But remember, if we are using position absolute, the parent should be position relative. And let's give our point. Top will be 0. As you can see, if you remember, the width of this image is 30 pixels. If I say left 30 pixels, it's going to be somewhere here. It's that easy. So I'm going to create other friends, other online users. Let's take here and duplicate. And that's all. As you can see, I can scroll my timeline and I can scroll my right bar. Perfect. Let's check. Okay, awesome. So right now we are going to create our home page, but before, let me show you how we can create this dark mode. As you can see, when I click on this button, our items are changing, and if I make this dark color, even if I refresh the page, it's going to stay as a dark. It means we are going to store this dark mode variable, and it's going to be our local storage. Let me make this bigger. As you can see, dark mode is true. If I change this, dark mode is false. So even if I refresh the page, it's going to remain like that. To do that, we are going to be using React Context API. Let me close here and open up my app.js. If you remember, we have our main div here, and we are going to have a class name, our theme, and it's going to be light mode or dark mode. And according to this value, we are going to change our elements, our background colors, border colors, and text colors. As you can see, they are white right now. But how we are going to do this? Of course, we are going to have a common style file. So let's close everything here. And inside source, I'm going to create style.scss. Of course, I should import this here. In my app.js, I'm going to say import style.scss. So since this style CSS contains all our pages, we can use it in any component and any page. So basically you can say theme light for navbar, background color, and different color if it's theme and dark mode. Again, navbar, different background, different color, but we have many components here. Writing them like that is not the efficient way. So I'm gonna delete this. So I'm gonna show you how you can create a dark mode function here. Firstly, I'm gonna create my theme. And it's gonna include our light mode. And I can create my colors here. For example, text color will be black color. And others, background will be white. We are going to have our logo color. Remember, it was dark blue. A soft background color, let's say BG soft. It's going to be this color. It's like a white, but a little bit grayish. And text color soft. It's going to be a little bit softer, dark. Finally, we are going to have border, and it's going to be light gray. Let's say border. So I have to create same thing for the dark mode, and I should specify my colors here. Actually, I can just copy paste. As you can see, background is darker, but this time our text color will be this white color. We are going to have softer background. We are going to have those borders. Right now, I'm going to write here a function. It might be a little bit confusing for you, but don't worry about that. If you don't want to use this version, as I said, you can create your parent here, theme dark or light, and you can write other components. But basically in this function, we are taking our themes. It's going to be themes, I'm sorry. And for each theme, for light or dark mode, we will be able to change child style. As I said, this is going to be our main div, theme light or theme dark, as we did here. And according to this theme name, it's going to map through each item inside this main div. In this case, we will be able to reach navbar, left bar, our home page or profile page, and right bar. And we will be able to change their themes using this function. When we use this, you are going to understand better. Just don't worry about this function. Just use it. So I'm going to use this function. For example, let's open up our navbar. And I can include my function here. Of course, to do that, we should import our style file. I will say import. It's going to be style.scss. Right now, I'm able to use my function here. I'm going to come here and say include my function name. And I'm going to add here my themes. And I'm going to wrap my old style with this function. So let's take this and paste here. So in this case, I can use any color here using this function. So instead of this background color white, let's say themed. And here we can give any variable here. And it's going to be this BG. Let's check. As you can see, this time it's dark. But if I change this to theme light, it's going to be white. I know it's confusing, but as I said, you don't have to know each line here. I just wanted to show you how you can do this using functions. And for color, text color, I'm going to be using themed, and it's going to be text color. Okay, it's still white. Let's change this. Dark mode. As you can see, perfect. What about this color? Inside search bar, I'm going to change here, and it's going to be themed and border. As you can see, it's softer. By the way, I'm going to change this input color. It's going to be transparent, as you can see. And when I write here something, it's not going to be black. It's going to be our text color. So I'm going to say color, themed, and text color. Like that. Okay. What about this logo? Remember, we can use this variable, and it's going to be white. Where is our logo here? Instead of dark blue, I'm going to say themed and logo. Like that. It's that easy. So I'm going to do the same thing for this left and right bar. Let's copy this for left bar. I'm going to paste. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to take this include here and wrap my entire div like that. And using theme function, I can change my background color here. I will say background color, themed, and BG. And one more is going to be our text color. And what about this HR? It's going to be our border color, themed, and border. And that's all, I think. As you can see, perfect. By the way, this color is too sharp. Let's open up navbar again. Okay, I didn't change here. It's going to be border. Okay, let's check. It's exactly the same. Awesome. What about here? I'm going to copy again, open up right bar. If you do this at the beginning, it's going to be easier, but I wanted to show you after creating couple components. I think it's better for understanding. So I'm going to take this here and drop my div. I'm gonna give background color, but in our example, its background color is this soft color. So it's gonna be BG soft. Like that. And for those items, let's copy this and paste here, but it's gonna be just BG. Let's change those texts. I'm gonna find my span here, and this P tag maybe. It's gonna be themed text color, but soft one. Remember, it was gray. I'm gonna copy this and paste here, but this time it's gonna be text color. Like that. And I will do the same thing for this home page. I'm gonna open up home page here, and it's gonna be home, and background color will be our soft color, BG soft. I will close my parentheses, and that's all. By the way, I can give padding here, 20 from top and bottom, 70 from left and right, and perfect. Okay, before creating our homepage, let's see how we can toggle our dark mode. To do that, you can open up your app.js, you can create here use state hook, and you can send the set method for the navbar. Then you can toggle your dark mode, but the better way is using context API. That's because you can use this toggle method maybe in this left bar, maybe you can create any settings page, you can use it there. Basically, for the feature, I don't want to use it like that. I'm going to create a context API. I'm going to close here, and inside source, I'm going to say context folder. And inside, let's say dark mode context. So let's create our context. Of course, I'm going to be using export. I'll say const dark mode context, and it's going to be create context. It comes from React. And after that, we are going to create our context provider that we can wrap our entire application. Let's create, I will say export const dark mode provider, actually context provider. We are going to take here a children. Remember, in our protected root, it's going to be our components or layouts. In this case, it's going to be our entire application. And let's create here our dark mode use state. I will say const dark mode set dark mode use state hook. And at the beginning, we are going to check our local storage, if there's a dark mode variable or not. I will say local storage dot get item, and item name will be dark mode, this variable name. And I will say if there is no dark mode, it means user is visiting our website for the first time, so it's gonna be false. So if it's the first visit, we should write it in our local storage. To do that, we are gonna be using useEffect. When we run our application, we are gonna start this useEffect, and it's gonna set our local storage. Set item name will be dark mode, and its value will be our dark mode value here. Basically, it's gonna be false. Of course, it's gonna depend on our dark mode value. Whenever it changes, our local storage will be set again with the new value. But how we are gonna toggle this dark mode? Let's create here a function, let's say toggle. I'm gonna recap here soon. If you didn't understand, don't worry. I'm gonna say set dark mode, and it's gonna be exactly the opposite of our dark mode. If it's true, it's gonna be false. It's gonna work like that. And finally, we are gonna return our provider, dark mode context dot provider, and it's gonna wrap our children. Oops, there's a typo here. And we can send any value to our components. Basically, we are gonna use this dark mode to decide if it's a light or dark mode here. And also we are gonna need this toggle function to toggle our dark mode using this navbar. So I'm gonna send here dark mode and toggle function. By the way, it's gonna be double curly parentheses, it's gonna be an object. Okay, so using this provider, I can wrap my children. To do that, you can come here and wrap your entire application like that. But I prefer using index.js. Basically, I can use my provider here and wrap my entire application. I think it's better. I'll say dark mode context provider, and I'm gonna wrap my app. Right now, I'm able to use this dark mode and toggle function in my entire application. Let's see it here. I'll say const. I can call this dark mode or toggle function. Let's call this one and check whether it works or not. To do that, we are going to be using use context React hook. And we should specify here which context we are going to use. We are going to use dark mode context. And that's all. I'm going to say console log and dark mode. Let's open up our console. And as you can see, it's false. So I can use this dark mode here. I'm going to delete this. And I'm gonna write here my condition. I will say it's gonna be team, but for the second part, check the dark mode. If it's a dark mode, it's gonna write here dark. If it's not, it's gonna write here light. And let's check our elements. And it still says team dark. I think I know the reason. That because our dark mode is a string here. Because when we get item, it returns as a string. To prevent this, I'm going to be using JSON parse. And I'm going to wrap my item. In this case, this is going to return as a string. But we are going to transform this into a JSON and it's going to return a boolean. And as you can see, it works properly right now. It's a boolean. So let me explain again what's happening here. Firstly, we are creating a context API. And to use this context, we are going to need this provider to wrap our application. That because we have to use this dark mode and toggle function in our components. Since we are wrapping our application with this wrapper, we are able to use anything we send here with this value. You can send whatever you want, but we are gonna need this dark mode and this toggle. So what about this local storage? I said use a use state and don't make this false at the first time. That because we might have visited this page before. If I visited this page, just check this local storage first. And if there is a variable like dark mode, like that, just take this value. This is how we can refresh the page. And our dark mode stays exactly the same. It's not changing. And whenever dark mode changes, just set our local storage again. But how we are going to change this dark mode? Using this function, toggle function. If it's true, it's going to be false. If it's false, it's going to be true. And every time we change it, we just set our local storage again and again. So we can use this toggle function in our navbar, and when we click on this button, we can toggle our dark mode. So we can do exactly the same thing here. I'm gonna delete this, by the way. I'm gonna copy here and open up my navbar. And let's paste it here. By the way, I'm gonna give some space. Okay. Let's import them. Use context from React and dark mode context from our context file. But this time we are gonna need toggle function. And when I click on this button, let's say on click event, we are gonna call this function. Let's see. I'm gonna click. As you can see, it's dark. Actually, let's close here. I'm gonna click light and dark. It's that easy, guys. And one more thing we can do here If I click here, as you can see, our icon is changing. Let's implement this functionality. As you can see, we have one more icon here. We can use it. And I'm gonna wrap here and I'm gonna write a condition. To do that, we are gonna need our dark mode. We should check if it's true or not, dark mode. And I'm gonna say, if it's dark mode, use this icon. If it's not, use this sun icon. And it's gonna be exactly the same thing. If we click on this, it's gonna toggle. Let's see. I'm clicking like that. Actually, it's gonna be exactly the opposite. Like that. Okay, it should be sun here. When it's light, it's gonna be moon. Perfect. I hope you understood here. If you didn't, just watch it again and you are gonna understand better. It's really important to understand here that because in the next tutorial, we are gonna do exactly the same thing for authentication. When we log in, we are gonna update our user information. Actually, we can do this right now. I think it's a better idea that because I don't wanna explain the same thing again in the next video. So I'm gonna create authentication context. Of course, JS. I'm gonna paste it here. And its name will be auth context. Auth context provider. Of course, we are gonna send something else here. Let's wait. And this time it's gonna be current user. And set current user. And at the beginning, it's gonna check whether there is a user inside local storage or not. If not, it's gonna be null. And whenever we change our user, we are gonna write it into local storage. And current user. Oops, it's gonna be current user. Whenever it changes, we are gonna write into local storage. But there is something important here. For the previous context, it was true or false. But this time, it's gonna include our user information, like profile picture, username. Basically, it's gonna be an object. So we cannot directly write it like that. We have to transform this into string first. To do that, we are gonna be using json.stringify and current user. Why we are doing this? That because you cannot store object inside local storage. It has to be a string. We are gonna take this string and transform into an object again. We are not gonna use toggle function. We are gonna be using login function. Of course, in the next tutorial, we are gonna take this from API. Our API is gonna return our user information and we are gonna set our current user. And since we are changing our current user, it's gonna run this useFact and it's gonna set user information into local storage. And after that, we will be able to use this current user and login function everywhere in our application. To do that, of course, we should wrap here. I will say auth context provider and wrap my app like that. Right now, in our app, if you remember, we were using this dummy variable, but this time we can fetch this using use context and auth context. Of course, it's gonna be null, by the way. I was using this port before, so I have a user here, but at the beginning, we are not gonna have any user and we are gonna redirect it to login page. If I try to go to home page, I can't, I have to login. So I can use this login function in this login page. I'm gonna copy this, pages, login here, and I'm gonna paste. Let's import them. We are gonna need a login function. And when we click on this login button, let's say handle login, we are gonna make this login operation. If everything is alright, we are gonna be navigated to home page. Of course, we are gonna do this in the next tutorial, but in this case, we cannot see our home page. So let's create here a dummy function. I'm gonna say set current user is gonna be just true. or any object. ID 1, name John Doe, and profile picture, for example. Let's open here this picture. Okay, when we click on this button, it's gonna call this function, and this function will update our user, and in this case we can use it here. Let's say auth context, and we can use our current user here. It's gonna be current user.name and current user.profile picture. Let's log in. I'm gonna click. Of course, we are not redirected to homepage. We are gonna make this functionality later. If I go to homepage, as you can see, John Doe is here, our image is here. Perfect. It works like that. So I can do the same thing here for the left bar. I'm gonna copy this, open up left bar. I'm gonna import them, and I can use this current user here. .name and profile picture. As you can see, it's here. Awesome. I hope you understood how it works. This context API. Let's close everything here, and let's see what else we have. As you can see, we are going to have this stories box. Let's create this component. New folder, stories, and one more component is going to be posts, which includes those posts. Let's create quickly our function and CSS. Stories.scss. Okay, let's close them and take care of these stories. In the next tutorial, we are going to fetch those items from our API, but for now, for the design part, we can create here a temporary dummy data. Temporary. I'm going to paste my data here. As you can see, it includes ID, username, and image. They are actually exactly the same, but we are going to use it here. I'm going to say check this stories array, and for each story, create here a div, and it's going to be story. And inside this story, we are going to have its image and username. Image is going to be story.image. Let's check. Okay, image and name. And I will say span story.name. And that's all. Of course, they are going to be really huge. By the way, we didn't add here. Let's open up homepage. And let's delete them. And I'm going to call stories. And after that, we are going to have our posts. I want to add this in advance. Okay, as you can see, they are here. Let's take care of them. I'm going to open my CSS, stories, main container, and each individual story. It has image and a span. I'm not going to use style.scss that because we are not going to change any color according to dark mode. We have only image here. So what I'm going to do? Firstly, they're going to be horizontal. I can give a gap between them, and I should specify here any height. It's going to be 250. And I'm going to give margin bottom here, that because I want to separate these stories and posts. And after that, for each story, I'm going to say flex 1. So their width will be exactly the same. And I want to give border radius. And remember, if we don't say overflow hidden, our image will be overflowing here. So I'm going to say overflow hidden. And that's all. So let's give width and height for this image. It's going to be 100%. Basically, it's going to be flex 1. Exactly the same width. And 250. Let's see. Okay, it looks like that. And add button here. Let's create. I'm going to copy this story. Paste here. It's going to be our user image. Actually, we can use context API. I'm going to say current user dot profile picture and current user name. Let's take this here. Const current user, use context and authentication context. By the way, I can say object fit here, so it can cover our story div like that. And what about those spans? I'm gonna use position absolute because it's gonna be on this image. And as I said, the parent should be position relative if you are using absolute. And I'm gonna give a specific position here, and it's gonna be bottom 10, left 10. So it's gonna start from somewhere here. Let's give style. Color will be white. Font weight will be 500. Like that. Let's add here a button. After this name, I'm gonna say button. It's gonna be plus. Let's write it here. Again, position absolute. This time bottom will be 40, left will be exactly the same. Color will be white, but I'm gonna change background color. It's gonna be blue, like that. I'm gonna delete border. And I'm gonna make this just a circle. Like that. But as you can see, it's really small. Let's say 30 pixels. And it can be cursor pointer. And font weight will be bold. So we can add our story here. Maybe I can increase this button. As you can see right now, it's not centered. You already know what we are gonna do. Justify content center. And nice. But this is thinner. Actually, let's delete this bold. Okay, it's exactly the same right now. Let's take care of those posts. We are gonna do exactly the same thing. We are gonna have a dummy data and we are gonna map through that data and create different posts. Let's come here. I'm gonna close them and open up posts. I'm gonna create here temporary data. As you can see, first one has an image and second one will be only description. I'm gonna say posts, map through these posts, and for each item create here a post div. Actually, I can create one more component here. That's because we are gonna have those functionalities, so writing them inside one component is not a good idea. So I'm gonna create one more folder. Okay, I can call this post component here instead of this div. Like that. And I can pass this post here. And if you are using map, you should give here any unique key, and it's gonna be post.id because each ID is different. So I should do the same thing for stories. It's gonna be key story.id. Okay. So what I'm gonna do for the posts component, I'm gonna make them vertical and give a space here. Let's open up posts. Display flags, flags direction column, and gap will be 50 pixels. And I can close here. And what about this post? We are gonna take our prop here. It's gonna be post, and let's see what we are gonna have. As you can see, we are gonna have a container here that we can give any padding, and after that we are gonna have 3 parts. First one will be this user part, second one will be our content, and third one will be those interaction buttons. Let's do that. First one will be user, second one will be content, and third one will be, let's say, info, for example. And inside this user, we are gonna have 2 parts. This first part and second part. Let's say user info. And the second part will be this icon. Actually, I'm gonna import every icon here to not waste time. As you can see, we are gonna be using this one. Okay, so we have this user information part, and it includes this image and one more div here, and it includes our username and a date. Let's say image is gonna be post image, post.image, and one more div, let's say details, and it's gonna be our username. I'm gonna wrap this with a link. That's because when we click on this username, we are gonna go to profile page. So I will say to profile page, and here I'm gonna use user ID. So I will say post.user ID, because remember, in our posts we have post ID and user ID. We are gonna be using this one. By the way, let's make this 2. Actually, it doesn't matter, but anyway. And I'm gonna say a span, and it's gonna be post.name. Our image is here, and as you can see, profile 1 and profile 2. Of course, I can delete this link style. I will say style, text decoration will be none, and color will be inherit. So there will be no specific color. Okay, perfect. And after this name, we are gonna have one more span, and it's gonna be 1 minute ago. And I'm gonna specify here a class name. It's gonna be date. Okay. Before creating this content and those buttons, let's take care of here first. I'm gonna open my CSS here. And firstly, I'm gonna give a padding. But as I said, we are gonna create here a container. I forgot that. Let's say container. Padding will be 20 pixels. And for this user, it's gonna be display flags, align item center, and justify content space between. That's because we are gonna separate them. First one will be here, second one will be here. And we have user info here, which includes our image, user image, and other details. Let's give here quickly a size, and we can see better. I will say 40 pixels. And object fit. Let's see. Okay, it's still here. Oh, I didn't save. Okay, perfect. And what about this section? This user info section, again, is gonna be horizontal, and I can give gap between this image and those texts. Gap 20 pixels, like that. And what about details? Display flags, but flags direction will be column. Oh, I added link here. Of course, it's going to be only name, like that. Okay, perfect. And for this name, Let's actually specify here class name. Inside details, it's going to be name and date. For name, I'm going to say font weight 500. And it's going to be 12 pixels. Okay, nice. But we don't have any background or box shadow like that. Let's create this. To do that, of course, we are going to be importing our style CSS. Import style CSS, and I'm going to wrap my div with this function and semicolon here, and that's all. So what I'm going to do, firstly, I'm going to add my box shadow here. I'm going to paste. I already told you how you can create this. I'm going to give a border radius. It's going to be 20 pixels. And finally, background color will be themed and BG. And one more, text color. And it's going to be just color. Like that. Let's change. As you can see, perfect. By the way, where is this image? Posts. Of course, it's going to be profile picture. It's a post image, but it's going to be profile picture. Like that. Okay, let's take care of this content side. Here is content. I'm going to create a p tag. It's going to be post.description. And after that, if there is an image, we are going to write it here, and it's going to be post image. And that's all. Let's write it here. This is user. It ends here. I will say content. I'm going to give some margin here from top and bottom, but left and right will be 0. And inside, we are going to have our image. Width will be 100%, like that. But as you can see, its height is really long. So I'm going to write here a maximum height, and it's going to be 500 pixels. If you are doing this, of course, you should give object width, and it's going to be cover. And I can give a margin here. Let's say 20 pixels. Okay, perfect. But as you can see, there is a problem here. It overflows our navbar. To prevent this, I'm going to open my navbar. And I'm going to give here a Z index. And it's going to be bigger than these stories. As you can see. Perfect. And what else? We are going to have those interaction buttons. Let's create. We are going to have 3 items. And each one will include an icon and text. But there is something important here. When we click on this button, this icon will be filled and it's going to be red. So we are going to have 2 icons here, and we need to create a functionality. Again, it's going to be temporary. I'm going to say const liked. It's going to be false. Basically, it's going to tell us if we like this post or not. If we didn't, we are going to show this outlined icon. If we liked, it's going to be this icon. Let's write here. I'm going to say if liked, other icon. If we didn't like, it's going to be this outlined icon. Let's copy this too. Like that. It's going to be opposite. Okay, as you can see, it's just border. Okay, border outlined, I'm sorry. And if I make this true, it's going to be filled. Perfect. And after that, we are going to have a text here. So let's say 12 likes, for example. We are going to change this later. and two more items. First one will be comment, and other one will be share button. Let's say, oops, comments, and share, like that. Let's make them horizontal and centered. I'm gonna take this here. Okay, this is navbar. After this content, I'm gonna say info. Of course, display flags, align item center, gap between them. And for each item, again, display flags, align item center, and I'm gonna give gap between icon and this text. And I'm gonna say cursor pointer, so we can click on them. And font size will be a little bit smaller. Like this. And I'm gonna create another functionality here and another component. When I click on these comments, we are gonna show comments component here. Let's see, in our application, I'm gonna click, we are gonna see this beautiful comment component. Let's create. I'm gonna close here, and this one, components, comments, comments.jsx, function, and CSS. Okay, let's write our fake comments here, and we are gonna map through this as we always do. Comments.map, and for each item we are gonna return another div. And firstly, let's see, we are gonna have this image, this content, and this date. So let's say image, comment.image, actually profile picture, this is user image. And after that we are gonna have information, actually let's say, okay, it can stay, doesn't matter. And we are gonna have username here, comment.name, and a p tag, and it's gonna be a description. And after this info, let's say 1 hour ago, I'm gonna give class name, and it's gonna be date. Of course, we cannot see right now that because we didn't click here. Let's create this functionality. I'm gonna open post again, and after this info, I'm gonna call comments component, like that. Okay, it's here, but before, as I said, we are gonna need a condition here. To do that, I'm gonna create here const comment open, set comment open. I'm gonna say use state hook, and at the beginning it's gonna be false. And whenever I click on this button, on this comment button, we are gonna show these comments. So let's come here, this item, on click method, and when we click, if it's true, it's gonna be false. If it's false, it's gonna be true. So I'm gonna say exactly the opposite. And let's write here our condition, like that. If it's true, just show comments, like that. Okay, perfect. Let's take care of this style and you can see better. Firstly, I'm gonna reduce this image size so we can see better after that. Let's import our style here. And include my function. And firstly, I'm gonna say image. It's gonna be 40 pixels. Border radius and object width. And for each comment, I'm gonna give margin here. I'm gonna separate this and I'm gonna say display flex. If you remember, we are separating them, so I will say space between, like that. They are separated, but there is something important here. As you can see, our image is really small. That's because our comment is really long. To prevent this, I can give width for this info section. Remember, it includes our username and this comment. Let's see. Info inside our username and description. So I'm gonna say info is gonna be vertical. Let's give gap. It's gonna be just 3. And for span, font weight will be 500. This is our username. And for the p tag, I'm gonna say color, our theme, text color soft. But there is something wrong here. That because it's centered. To prevent this, I'm gonna say align items and flex start. Okay, and as I said, I'm gonna give a width here to fix this image. I will say flex 5. So I should do the same thing for this date. After this info, I'm gonna say date and flex will be 1. And I can separate them. Gap will be 20 pixels. Okay, perfect. But as you can see, it looks a little bit strange. I'm gonna center this. To do that, we are gonna be using align self. That's because we are not centering items, we are centering this item itself. And it's gonna be center. And I'm gonna change this color. It can be gray. And font size will be smaller. Okay, perfect. Let's check our application. And as you can see, we have one more item here that we can write our comments. So I'm gonna come here. Before this map, I will say write. And inside, again, we are gonna have our image. Of course, it's gonna be our current user. Let's call this here const current user, use context, auth context. Let's see. Okay, it was profile picture like that, I think. Okay, perfect. And after that, I'm gonna create an input here and placeholder, write a comment. And finally, a button. And it's gonna be sent. Let's separate them. By the way, I can give some margin here. Before this comment, I'm gonna say write, align item center, justify content, space between. I'm gonna give gap, and as I said, I'm gonna give margin. It's gonna be 20 and 0. Let's increase this input size 100%. I'm gonna give some padding like that. Let's delete this border. By the way, where is our margin? Oh, I said max width. It's gonna be margin. Okay. I'm gonna say border none. Actually, I'm gonna give different color, not none. So I will say 1 pixel, solid, and themed border. And remember, its background color is white. I'm gonna change this. It's gonna be transparent. And inside, when we write anything, it's gonna be text color. Okay, perfect. Let's check. Okay, awesome. What about this send button? After this input, border will be none, background color, and font color will be white. I'm gonna give some padding and cursor pointer. maybe border radius a little bit. It's gonna be just 3 pixels. Like that. But again, since we gave here a padding, our image looks a little bit smaller. So instead of 100, I'm gonna say flags 5. It looks pretty nice. Like that. We can close and open our comments. And what about this profile page? Let's check. As you can see, we are going to have our posts, but before we are going to have this cover picture, this profile picture, and some information here. Let's create. Before everything, I just want to import those icons. I'm going to close everything here and open up profile and import my icons here. Okay, and after that, I'm going to create an images container, and it's going to include this cover and profile picture. I'm going to say images. First image will be cover and second will be profile. Let's add those images like that. And after that, we are going to have profile container. And inside this container, as you can see, we are going to have 3 items. First one, second one, and third one. Let's create here a container first. I will say user info, and I will say left, center, and right. Inside left, we are going to have those icons, but inside anchor tag. When we click on them, we are going to go to facebook.com or any other social networks. So basically, I will just copy paste, as you can see, URL and icon. But there is something important here. We set font size large. If you are using Material UI icons, you can make them larger, like that. As you can see, they are smaller, but they are larger. If I say small, as you can see, it's smaller. It's gonna be large. Okay, and after that, inside center, we are gonna have our username, Jane Doe, let's say span. And after that, a container here, which includes this place and website. Let's say, I don't know, info, first item, and it's gonna include place icon. And let's say USA, and another icon, language, and we are going to add here our website, llama.dev, like that. And finally, this follow button. After this item, I'm going to say button and follow. And finally, for the right side, we are going to have 2 more items, 2 more icons, email icon, and more vertical icon. Okay, let's take care of those images first. I'm going to open my CSS file. Let's import this CSS file, and I'm going to say profile. I'm going to include this theme, and background color will be themed and BG. Actually, it's going to be softer. That because remember, this color shouldn't be white. And firstly, images. Remember, it includes our cover image and profile picture image. Firstly, I'm gonna give here a width. It's gonna be 100%, and height will be 300 pixels. I'm gonna say position relative. That because we are gonna use position absolute for this profile picture. And what about this cover? I will say 100%, height 100%. So it's gonna be full width and 300 pixels. Of course, we cannot see this because of this image. Let's change this. 200. border radius, and object width. Actually, I can do the same thing for this one. Let's see right now. As you can see, perfect. So let's move this image on the middle of this div. So I will say position absolute. Firstly, I'm gonna center this horizontally. So I will say left 0, right 0. If I say margin also, it's gonna center this. So how I'm gonna put this here? Remember, its size is 200 pixels and this size is 300 pixels. If I start this profile picture on top 200 pixels, it's gonna be in the middle. Let's see. Top 200 pixels. Perfect. That's because here is 200, this radius is 100, and in the total it's 300. So what about this user information? I will say user info. Right, 180. Again, I'm gonna give my box shadow here and border radius 20 pixels. Let's give our background color BG and text color. And I'm gonna give some padding 50. Like that. And as you can see, there is a space here. To give this space, I'm gonna use this profile container. I forgot that. Let's wrap this profile container. And if you remember our home page, this padding is 20 and 70. Perfect. Let's take care of those items. It's going to be display flags, align item center, and justify content will be space between. Like that. Let's give exactly the same width for them. Left, center, and right. Flags 1, 1, and 1. Okay, let's give some space between those items. Display flags, gap will be 10. Let's separate them. And for the right section, again, display flags, align item center, and justify content will be flags and. That's because I don't want to start them in the beginning or center. It's gonna be end of this right div. Let's give gap quickly. Okay. And what about this center? It's gonna be vertical. Let's center them and give a gap like that. And for this span, I can increase font size and font weight. I will say span, font size 30 pixels, font weight bold, 500. And what about this container? Remember, it's info container. They are gonna be horizontal like that. Of course, they are really huge. That's because we use this span here, but we are gonna create another span inside and they are gonna be smaller. But before, let's say align item center and justify content space around. Let's make them smaller and you can see better. I will say font size 12 pixels. Oops, why this button is here? Info. Okay, of course. This is gonna be here under those items. Okay, but they are not separated. Let's check. I'm gonna give background color here. Okay, it's not 100%. Let's say 100. Okay, perfect. And you can see here how space around works. If I say space between, it's gonna separate them like that. If I say space around, it's gonna give some space for the left and right side. Okay, I can delete this. And they are not centered, by the way. That because they are inside item. I will say item, this pen is inside item also. So I'm gonna say align item center, and they're gonna be centered. But let's change this color. It's gonna be themed text color soft color. What about this button? I'm gonna do exactly the same button here, but only difference will be its padding. It's gonna be bigger. I will just copy paste. I don't wanna write the same thing. As you can see, background color is blue, font color and padding. It's gonna be here. After this info. Okay. But these colors are not the same. There is something wrong there. By the way, I'm gonna change this color also. Text color soft. Let's check. Okay. There's a typo here. Okay, perfect. And I will do the same thing for here. Inside left, we have an anchor tag here, and its color will be exactly the same color. I will copy this and paste here. Okay, awesome. Let's check. I can add those posts also. After this container, I'm gonna call posts. Import posts. Okay, but it should be inside, of course, this container div. That because remember we gave here a padding. Okay, I can give a margin here. User info, margin bottom 20 pixels, like that. And that's all I think. Right now we can take care of our responsive design. As you can see, we can choose any font here. Let's say iPhone. And as you realize, our navbar is long here. To fix that, we are gonna be using CSS media query, but we are gonna do this inside our global CSS, so we can use it everywhere. I'm gonna create here a mixin, and it's gonna be mobile. And I'm gonna create here media query, and let's write here our condition. It's gonna be maximum width 480 pixels. Basically from 0 to this point, we are gonna apply a new style. To do that, I'm gonna write here content. So we will be able to write any style here. Let me show you and you are gonna understand better. I'm gonna take this function and open up my navbar. And what I want to do is to delete this search button, for example. I'm gonna go to input and I will say include mobile, and here I'm gonna say display none. And right now, as you can see, our input is gone. I can do the same thing for this right side. I will copy this, and after right side I will say display none. And that's all. We have only those items and this search. So what you can do here, you can create here a functionality. When you click on this button, you can show your input somewhere here. Instead of display none, you can say position absolute, top 70 pixels with 100%. So it can be here. But anyway, it can stay for now. So what I'm gonna do, as you can see, it looks strange. That's because we have left and right bar. Basically, I'm gonna delete them. I'm gonna open left bar. And if it's a mobile screen, it's gonna be display none. And for the right bar, exactly the same thing, display none. Okay, it's still strange. That because we have padding here. I'm gonna open up homepage. If it's a mobile screen, I'm gonna decrease this padding. It's gonna be just 10. But those images are still overflowing. So instead of those long images, I'm gonna make this circle. Let's open up stories. I will say, if it's a mobile screen, make the height 50 pixels. Oops, that's because I didn't import my CSS here. Okay, and I'm gonna decrease this image size. It was flex 1. I'm gonna say flex none. Instead, it's gonna be width 50 pixels. So it's gonna be circle. I'm gonna give border radius like that. How I'm gonna separate them? I'm gonna come here and say justify content space between. By the way, I can delete those spans. It's gonna be display none like that, and I can change this button. I can center that. I will copy this and paste here. If you remember, it was position absolute. How we are centering this, remember? Top, bottom, and if I say margin auto, it's gonna be centered like that. Perfect. So what about this profile page? I'm gonna click here. As you can see, this image is too big. I'm gonna come here inside user info. I will say include mobile. And firstly, it's not gonna be horizontal anymore. It's gonna be vertical. So flex direction will be column. And I can increase its size. As you can see, it's really small. Let's say maybe 30 VH. And padding is too big. Let's say 20 pixels. Like that. And I want to give a margin here. Like this. And also I'm gonna change this padding here. Remember, we have profile container. I will say include mobile and 10. Okay, perfect. It looks pretty nice. Okay, if you want to, you can change this date, you can delete, or you can move it somewhere here. But I think it looks nice. And that's all I think. Let's check for iPad Air, for example. As you can see, it's pretty ugly. Let's create something for this also. I'm gonna open up style and one more. And this time I'm gonna increase here. Let's say 960. And its name will be, let's say, tablet. It's gonna be for small screens. So I will do the same thing for right bar. I'm gonna just delete right bar. Let's duplicate this and it's gonna be tablet. Like that. And also I want to decrease this input size here. Let's open up navbar. It's gonna be 200 pixels. Okay, maybe I can delete this user. Here. Display none. Okay, it's better. And what about this home page? Let's come here. It's gonna be padding 20. Okay, nice. If you want to, you can decrease this story. Let's do that actually. it was 250. I'm gonna say maybe 200. Maybe 150. Okay, it's better, I think. Maybe I can increase this gap. Okay, perfect. Let's open up profile. Maybe this padding. I'm gonna give exactly the same padding. Let's open up profile and here. And that's all. But as you can see, this side is too big. It's a left side. To prevent this, I'm gonna use flex wrap, and it's gonna be wrap. And as you can see, if it doesn't fit in this container, it sends other item into other line. Perfect. If I open my dark mode, it looks awesome. And that's all. You can do the same thing for other screens, for bigger screen, for X large screens. I'm not gonna create all of them. I just wanted to show you how you can do this. You can create your own breakpoints and play around your HTML elements. And don't forget, in the next tutorial, we are gonna fetch all this data from our DB, and it's gonna be a dynamic app. I hope you liked it. If you learned something new today, please like the video. You can support LlamaDev by using the link in the description below or by joining the channel. Don't forget to follow LlamaDev's social media accounts. I hope I will see you in the next tutorial. Goodbye.